Welcome back, everybody. This is Michael Levitas from JurisQ, and I'm here with divorce attorney Alla Kurolapnik. Alla, welcome back.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank
Thank you for having me back.
My pleasure. Alla, we usually talk about mediation because you are a divorce attorney with strong emphasis on using mediation in divorce proceedings to lessen the impact on everybody involved, to make it more smooth. However, today I want to talk about adultery. Adultery happens quite a lot on both sides of the spectrum, and I want to talk about the financial considerations of cheating. If a spouse was caught cheating, does that affect the alimony, also known as maintenance, or no? What do you say, Alla?
So let's go back to the initial concept of adultery, right? And let's take it back further. So, there are theories out there, psychological theories, that say adultery is the last step to a broken relationship. Because if you're in a happy place with your spouse, unless you have some kind of, and even then, if it's a psychological issue, you're not running around and cheating on your spouse. So it's really the basis or the lack of communication or where there's a broken relationship to begin with, right? And more often than not, cheating kind of springs up on you by surprise, right? There are those very few couples that kind of know and sort of close their eyes, and that's a whole other psychological conversation to be had, which I'm not an expert on. But most of the time, cheating kind of just creeps up on the other spouse, and you're caught off guard, right? So under those circumstances, the spouse who's been the wronged party, who's been cheated on, is more likely to, what I say, go for the jugular. They're so upset that this happened to them that they kind of want revenge, right? So revenge, financial, whatever it is, they want to make the other party hurt for hurting them. Right. So that in itself rises the temperature of where your divorce is going to go, right? And the law only says this much about adultery. Because New York is a no-fault state, we turned into a no-fault state some time ago, you no longer need a grounds for divorce other than to say, look, it's an irretrievable breakdown of the marriage. We just no longer love each other. And that's perfectly acceptable. So now adultery, you don't need to prove adultery in order to get divorced. But your question was, and I'm going to take it back, is whether or not that has an impact on the finances. Right. And the answer is yes, to some degree. What it has an impact on really is equitable distribution, not so much maintenance, but the equitable distribution. And when I say that, I'm going to break it down because please. Equitable distribution is the division of assets and the liabilities in a marriage. New York is an equitable distribution state. We've spoken about this in several of my meetings with you. And New York says that being married to someone is like having a financial partnership with them, right? And in a business financial relationship, if your partner dissipated the business assets, for instance, if he or she frivolously took money out of the business and spent it on, marketing, which you didn't approve of, bought luxurious items to promote the business when none were necessary. When you're dividing that business in a lawsuit or just at the end of the partnership, that money may be at issue. Same thing applies to a marriage. So adultery has an impact in the sense that if one of the spouses uses marital assets on his or her girlfriend or boyfriend, all that money is marital money, half of which belongs to the other spouse. So when we do equitable distribution, if you can, of course, find a paper trail, and most often we do that by examining credit card receipts, both personal and business. We look at bank statements, we ask questions at depositions to figure out whether or not there's been a dissipation of assets. and how much is that the value of that dissipation. So if, for instance, your spouse, bought his or her girlfriend a watch, or took him or her on vacation, and I can find $15,000 that was spent on that significant other, $7,500 goes back to the pot because that's the other spouse's money.
Yeah, that's a
So
very
that's
interesting
where it
fact.
really has an impact.
Oh, I never knew that. So cheaters really have to beware. Not only are you possibly wrecking your marriage, but also it could cost you down the road if you're using this joint family money to support his or her boyfriend, girlfriend on the side. Very
That's
interesting.
right. And look, the clever people find clever ways of doing it. They'll get an apartment and put it on the business and say it's a business asset. Meanwhile, there's, the girl, that's the second home for somebody
I'm sure
and
you've
his
seen
or
it
her
all.
girlfriend or boyfriend.
I'm sure in your practice you've
There's
seen it all.
right. And then there's a cash trail, right? Like somebody's, on Valentine's night pulling out, $1,000 out of the bank. Like, where are you going with that money on Valentine's Day? So like things of that nature, like,
So is this
so it's
where like you said, a forensic accountant could really dig into the finances to find that second set of books, if you will, to
It can
find
be, if
these
it
expenses?
certainly, right. Certainly, if it deals with a business, absolutely a forensic accountant. If it's just an issue of looking through, the bank accounts and the bank statements, depending how big the financial picture is, right? The high net worth clients, we may need to utilize that. But, if it's a smaller estate that we're evaluating, or a smaller estate that we're divorcing, for lack of a better term,
Mhm.
then, these are the sort of things that your attorney should be looking at to pinpoint. You and your attorney should be doing that. That's the
Okay.
prep work.
Uh-huh. Okay. I have a follow-up question. Okay, we have established possibly you can go after your spouse for wasting family money on, let's say, on a side girlfriend. Can the wife sue the girlfriend for the money spent on her? I know it's a
I don't know.
out of left
I don't think she can. I don't think it's a third party claim, quite frankly, because uh the money doesn't belong to the girlfriend. So she's not stealing it. There's a third party giving presents to that person. So I think the fault here would lie, just logically speaking,
Mhm.
in the person that's giving away the money, not the person receiving it,
Understood.
right? So, and certainly not in the divorce proceedings. If you're talking about a tort action, I'm
Right.
certain you could find a claim for, some kind of emotional distress if there's
Mhm.
communication between the girlfriend, boyfriend, and the spouse, right? And if there's
Mhm.
some
Right.
kind of agility. But short of that, I don't see from a financial perspective how you'd be able to get a claim against the non-party.
I want to tie it back to mediation because you are, of course, a big proponent of mediation in divorce proceedings. Like you said in the beginning of this conversation, if cheating was alleged, then really the feelings can be off the charts. And sometimes people can act in not rationally, but to exact revenge on their spouse. So maybe through mediation, people could be brought back to their senses, if you will, to act rationally and logically for the benefit of everybody and the kids, to just end this marriage, make everything equitable and fair, and move on. What do you think? What do you think?
I mean, I think, look, one of the things that I would, if I had a couple that came in and one of the spouses said to me, he or she had a girlfriend, and, where did all the money go? Where's all our money? Like, there's no more money, right? And, I'd say, okay, look, we can do one of two things, because it's going to happen either way, right? If you're alleging that your spouse cheated and dissipated, the accounts and took money out and spent it frivolously, you're going to have to prove that in court. So if you're going to make that claim. So, I always say, if that's where the mind is, let's quiet the mind. Let's see what we can do in
Right.
order to resolve that issue. So I would ask the person who feels wrong, what is it that we can do to sort of get this issue resolved for you? You know, do you need some document production to show that there were no nefarious, spending habits anywhere?
Right.
Do you need, someone to put together a lifestyle analysis for you? You can do all those things, right? If that's going to resolve the issue for you. Or we can, make some kind of provisions in the agreement that says that if we uncover it at some point in time, let's say within a year or so, we have the ability to come back and pull that money back. In other words, in mediation, the two parties can agree to almost anything they want to, as
Perfect.
opposed to when you're in front of a judge, because the judge is bound by, I mean, we're all bound, the mediators are bound by the laws as well. We can't, create an agreement that's illegal, but sort of for the judges, it's a lot more clear cut. It's a lot more cut and dry,
Mhm.
because they're not going to get involved in the nitty gritty and providing these, thinking out of the box solutions for
Right.
the parties.
Yeah.
They're going to say, here's the law. It's relatively clear to me. There's a statute. It says what it says. Here's the case law. Here's the way I see it based on the facts. And here's the decision I'm going to make.
Yeah,
Whereas
basically,
when you're in mediation,
court, you are part of the system. You just in the warehouse where they're moving goods. Whereas in mediation, you take a much more personable and personal approach to a divorce. Alla, thank you so
right.
much
And
for this digest. Appreciate it. And I'm gonna come back to you now next session on a follow-up question: child support. If a spouse was caught cheating, does that affect child support? Hold on, don't give it away yet. We're going to talk about it in our next session. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you very soon. Take care.
thank you.